Hey guys, it's Charlie, and I wanted to, it's hard to post these videos sometimes because I almost feel like it's only reaching a handful of people. But, if I can make a difference in one person's life, that's all that should matter. And I've officially written myself off in the sense that I don't want to make any money from YouTube. Um, and, using a platform like this may be a benefit to me, but at the same time, I don't want to uh, support something that is, well, the way I look at it is they're ushering in the new world order and they're refusing to give anybody a platform that isn't following the guidelines that are laid out according to the the WHO, the mainstream narrative. So, for anybody that is not familiar with my channel, uh, I'm driven to seek truth. Uh, you know, Sometimes I will allow my bias to look at things, but I'm just telling you right now that everybody is biased in their approach to information, and they're always filtering their, uh, you know, data through that filter of interpretation. And I mean, that should be obvious, but a lot of people are so insistent that their perspective is all that matters. And, I can appreciate a perspective like that but I do try to look at everything through different eyes sometimes. I want to make sure that I can test my own fundamentals, my own foundation. And, sometimes I have little thoughts flash into my mind where I start questioning if information I was given was intended for me to believe so that I could be silenced in some ways, any way that like something might manifest in me to dissent. You know, Jesse Ventura, former governor of Minnesota, former WWF wrestler, um, says dissent is the greatest form of patriotism. And, I think that, with this Hegelian dialectic, and if you're not familiar with that is, problem, reaction, solution, there's some higher powers that be trying to, promote an agenda, and they're going to use creating a problem, uh, which will in turn cause a reaction from the people. And then the powers that be will provide a solution, which is actually the solution they started or the problem they started. So it's pretty clear when you're actually looking at everything uh, from a bird's eye view. You start realizing, oh my gosh, this is all so blatant, so obvious. And I just wish that people could see things for what they are. But again, so I'm gonna just put this out there, and I'm apprehensive to share it because I don't want to make myself look like I'm just a doubting Thomas per se. I am a doubting Thomas in the sense that it seems like all the information that I'm looking at nowadays, I don't really know um, how to believe in it, I guess, because I don't want to just believe in something willy nilly. And so, you know, there was a statement that was made from Mel Fabregas from Veritas Radio. He's been putting out these videos called the Corona Chronicles. And I'm just telling you one thing right now. If you haven't even seen part one, you got to see at least part one. I'm going to leave a link in the description for the Corona Chronicles. I'll link it over to the BitChute because that's the only way I was able to see it. And, I'm going to try to take people away from this platform as often as I can and link over to BitChute. In fact, I'm going to start trying to be more active with my BitChute and with Float.app or um, library or whatever, because honestly, those are not getting enough attention lately, even with all the you know the resistance from all the sanctions being put on YouTube as a platform. But Mel said something. Uh, um, Forgive me, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. Sometimes I just want to vent on a video, and I kind of lose track of where I'm going with things. But um, basically, he was saying it'll come back to me in a little bit. But anyways, look at the Corona Chronicles, at least part one, because it kind of lays the foundation for everything as far as like the narrative that was being presented. It's kind of like on par with uh, In the Shadows documentary. He was talking about how Hollywood is part, and the media is part of the establishing the narrative. I think that this is all an ancient ideology, that has gone back even before Roman times, I guess. And it hasn't really been solidified. I mean, they're just flying under the radar as much as they can so that they can incrementally assume, world power, world dominance, because it didn't work with, with Babylon. I mean, it did to some degree. It didn't work with Medo Persians. It didn't work with the Romans or the Greeks. I mean, you could say that ideology carried on with basically being a hidden agenda now, a secret agenda. Now, the thing, okay, this kind of segues into what I wanted to say. That really ventures outside of my realm to the point where I'm literally questioning my own fundamentals. And I don't like doing that. Like anybody, if they question their fundamentals, would probably feel um, uncomfortable with it, to say the least. But, and I hate to plant seeds in other people's minds when maybe my way of looking at things is questionable. But again, it could be something or it could be nothing. But I just want to get feedback from people to see what they think. When it comes to the Bible, okay, so there was the nature of writing going back into the Greek times. They always spoke from parables. Now, these parables were said in such a way where you could extract wisdom from it, right? And this actually preceded the Bible days, in the sense that, like when Jesus and all the disciples and stuff were writing, it didn't seem like any of the disciples wrote, or the apostles wrote out uh, parables per se, but they did write how Jesus spoke in parables. So I believe that was something that was pretty common in that time, was trying to present wisdom in the form of, a parable or a metaphor. Now, I want you guys to kind of consider something from this angle, because if everything in the Bible is either a metaphor or like some sort of parable where you can extract wisdom from it, or you could say it's actual events taking place, where you could take it at face value, right? So if you're interpreting it in its truest application, which is reality, uh, you know, wisdom doesn't necessarily have to be hidden, but it's just right out in the open. Now, one thing I did notice about the patterns of the Bible is that not only do they have both ways of writing, like the parables and the uh, the reality of the storyline, but it almost seems like they'll overlap to some degree. So say for instance, there's a lot of hidden messages inside the stories of the Bible or whatever. The things that bother me are that when you actually look into like Freemasonry and the Illuminati and things like that, I start to think that uh, that stuff is so secretive, so hidden that it's like it was intended to be discovered by people with those who have wisdom, or those who have or were given the privy information or whatever. So I don't know if the Bible was written that way. So say for instance, like what if the type of the writing style throughout the ages was intended to, whatever information was put out there, there has to be some sort of hidden agenda or hidden secret within the writing, within the words of the writing. I'm going to categorize the Bible for a second in that light. What if, whoever wrote the Bible actually had an intention of a secret meaning, hidden meaning? And people I know that study the Bible intently will admit that that is the way that the Bible is written. That there's some sort of secret or hidden meaning within the words. I mean, I had an interview with Robert Farrell on 2 separate occasions where he talks about that. That the hidden manna is the words that are secret, and you bring it out in the open. It's like God's hidden manna is found in secret, in the secret place. And what about the nature of the Freemasons or the Illuminati? It seems to me like they either took that writing style and applied it to themselves, or they used the same writing style that was handed down to them so that they could hide their secret agenda. So my concern right now is, if there was a narrative that was set up from day one, and that day one would have been thousands of years ago, potentially, what if the secret hidden agenda was actually written in the words of the Bible, of what those who seek will find if they're willing to venture down the road of understanding? Trust me, this line of thinking actually disturbs me, because it makes me feel like there's a chance that I'm right with how I'm thinking, and that the agenda was written down in secret in the words of the Bible of what will happen in the end. Not necessarily God's intuition, but the intuition of these authors. Now, granted, it's like maybe I shouldn't give so much credit to them being like that wise and hiding something out in plain sight. But the way that the nature of this world, it's almost like the most obvious things that are out in plain sight are shown to society out in the open, yet they are unaware because they're not paying attention. And that's an epidemic, or maybe even use the word pandemic, because it's like a disease that people don't even realize that they're being affected by. Like, the pandemic of the mind. And, it is an interesting train of thought. But one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is that when Jesus turned 30, he started his ministry. And now, I'm not taking away from who Jesus was or is, Because, I'm just playing with the thought that maybe somebody came along and changed the words of the scriptures somehow to hide a meaning of some sort. So Jesus, turning 30, had a ministry for 3 years, and then died when he was 33. Now, obviously, in numerology, or even just the nature of numbers and their meaning, you could see this in, um, you know, like the number 33 is the number of enlightenment. Like when you ascend, I guess you could say. Now, Jesus ascended when he was 33. So I'm not saying that that wasn't true, like an actual event, but I'm saying that what if that is just an interesting coincidence, or maybe if it wasn't a coincidence at all, that Jesus ascended, you could say he's an ascended master. The concept of, like this new age thinking when it comes to people realizing who they are, and that how the book of Genesis basically teaches that as soon as you start looking into the good, the knowledge of good and evil, that's when you were lost. Um, like there's a place for good and evil in our hearts or in this reality. And once you realize who you are, a lot of people start saying, like, that is when I become an ascended master, when you start realizing the purpose for everything as it is. I don't necessarily believe any of these things, but I'm trying to look at things outside of my paradigm to see if the puzzle pieces fit, I guess you could say. But then again, it causes me to struggle with my faith in God or Jesus as a, you know, Christianity, or even just the religious side of things. I want to believe in something, and I have found that truth, even the wisdom that comes from Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The Father is the all, right? We could all, we're trying to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. This is a quote from Paul. If we're being transformed by the renewing of our mind, we are enduring to the end so that we would be saved. Now, this concept of being saved almost overlaps with the concept of ascension to me in some ways, because I feel like if we are ascending, then we are actually, becoming enlightened, I guess you could say. Now, I'm starting to, see a picture or an image of something that I never thought I would ever see, and it's bothersome to me. As I go down the rabbit hole, I start to think, what if all this stuff was just the nature of these illuminated people, the Illuminati, that wanted to infiltrate and just communicate through the obvious. This is what our agenda is going to be. Now, right now, we are seeing unprecedented changes in our world, and it's pretty blatant and clear what's happening, only for those who are understanding of what this reality is. And the unfortunate thing is, the people who don't look into this are the ones that are like, oh, it does make sense that the government's taken over everything. It does make sense that, they're creating a safe place for us so that we don't. So they're gravitating towards safety rather than freedom. I don't like the way things are trending, But more and more, I'm realizing that I have a responsibility of exposing lies. Maybe all of this. Here's the crux of it all, and this is going to wrap up my video. I think that there's an infrastructure that was created by God that a lot of people actually discovered, kind of like math or their patterns of creation, DNA, whatever. We identify to things doesn't mean that we are have anything to do with it. We just discovered it. So we may be ascended in the sense of knowledge, but it means nothing because of the infrastructure that was laid by God. And I say God as in whoever or whatever created this realm that we call reality. We can say was overlaid by a template of knowledge, and people were built with the capacity to discover. In that discovery, we actually start seeing patterns, and you know, we start, applying it to what we call knowledge. So I don't want to test the foundations of Christianity, but I believe that any truth holds up to scrutiny. Truth will hold up to scrutiny, and all truth should be tested, in my opinion. But again, sometimes people find their own truth based on their own bias. So truth can be subjective in that sense. So be careful. I'm trying to be careful, but at the same time, I'm trying to be aware. So for those who are still listening to the end, I very much appreciate your time, your dedication to me as a truth seeker. And if you're willing to share this video, feel free to share it on social media. Click the like button, subscribe, click the bell, whatever, the whole routine. But again, I'm not going to monetize anymore. I don't want to. I don't want to receive funds. It's like dirty money to me. Advertising money is dirty money. I don't want to share it with YouTube. I don't want to share it with YouTube enough to the point where I don't want any money. But again, if anybody wants to support me, I left some links for PayPal, Patreon. I don't need your money, just so you know. But I want to give the option because I do want to break away from the grid, the system that is being presented to us. So I love you guys very much. I will talk to you later. All right, bye.